What's up, guys? This is Before We're 30, episode 2, which is weird because we just filmed episode 1. We're basically front-loading this episode because we're going on vacation tomorrow.
Ew.
Florida.
2K19.
Dude, it's been like what?
Six or 7 months.
Since we said, okay, we're going to go to Florida.
Yeah.
And now we're
I think
here,
we've
and
been...
I'm like, holy...
I think we've been really talking about it since October of last year.
Yeah, you're right. You're actually right.
Literally
and now
since
we're literally about to go tomorrow.
I know.
That's crazy. So first of all, you can find this podcast on what you're probably on YouTube, but you can also find it on SoundCloud and maybe Apple Podcasts, depending on how I get things up as we leave to vacation. Episode 1 went great. We gave you guys background into who me and Austin are, and basically that was all the episode was. But that's not going to be how every episode goes. This will be how every episode goes. We'll have a guest. But before we have the guest on, me and Austin will have our little segment where we are open to talk about literally anything in our lives that are happening. Today's guest is very special, Barth Cotner. Yeah. He's the owner of Cotner Funeral Home. He's on city council in Reynoldsburg. He's running for mayor of Reynoldsburg this fall, and he's also our boss. So
yeah, he's pretty much... anything to do with Reynoldsburg, he's probably got some sort of tie.
Many talents. One of the things that I got from that interview was a lot about the community. But this is the front part. This is the part me and Austin are going to have a little bit of fun in and talk about whatever the heck we want to talk about. So Austin, do you want to start us off, or do you want me to start us off?
I'll go real quick. So me and my girl were at home today reading an article. Our friend Sydney was there too, but we were talking about this person who was exploring this abandoned zoo park in Australia or something. It's like some wildlife preserve or anything like. It was weird. And he went there and it was already abandoned, but there was, those formaldehyde tanks?
Yeah.
There was a shark still there. Like a 12-foot shark.
Is
this is in Australia.
This makes sense for Australia.
A 12-foot shark, literally still intact and everything, was just chilling in a formaldehyde tank.
90% of Australia is uninhabitable.
Really?
90,
it's that bad.
And the only people who live there live on the coast.
Yeah, I did hear about that. They don't.
Sydney. All right, keep going with your story. I'm gonna look up a population
That's
heat map.
insane, dude. No, but and the backstory behind it was a wildlife preserve center, and the shark had died by some fishing nets or something, and they took it there and they put it in that tank.
Poor guy.
And they left it after the park closed down. They just left it there. And it's been 7 years since that shark has just been sitting there dead.
This is why they kill us, by the way.
Do you think that's why?
This is why they kill
we
us.
just hold up their dead brothers in a tank,
Dude, speaking of, I'm sorry, I don't want to go too off topic.
No.
But speaking of, okay, I have to show you this, and we're gonna put it in the video.
Is it sharks?
If you're listening to us on audio, I suggest you go to YouTube and watch us because this is gonna be a highly visual show. But keep going with your story.
Well, no, that's it.
So
They took it. Was just it was nuts because I was like, why would they keep a shark there, or why did they leave it? Isn't that a pretty important piece of what you're trying to do?
Well, I'm sure in Australia they hate sharks because they probably eat them. The sharks eat the people.
Well, yeah,
nuts,
but
right?
But that's not the shark's
If
fault.
you lived where wolves live, and wolves just ate your child, wouldn't you hate wolves?
Depending on the situation at hand, I feel like.
Well,
because I'm really into it's like they were here before us, so we kind of got to watch out for them in a sense.
I guess you're right.
I feel like I think a lot of because back when I was a kid, I would
talk a little lower.
Or back when
You're screaming.
Back when I was a kid, I would always want to kill animals, or kill snakes and kill birds. Yeah.
So you're a serial killer.
I guess I really I would be in my backyard with a BB gun and I would shoot quail.
Okay.
And I would shoot rats.
That's a normal bird. Bird. That's a normal human thing. I used to shoot birds.
Yeah, but now I don't think I can.
Ohio suburbs type
I don't
stuff.
think I can do that anymore.
So you said you were explaining the story. You went into the shark thing. Then you said something else. I forget.
You said that's why the sharks eat us.
Oh, that's why the sharks eat us.
I know what you're pulling up. Oh my God.
Bro, the fact that we do this to robots, even though they're just robots.
Oh, you think that
This is so rude. Like,
yeah, but do you think
they're gonna when robots get smart enough, they're gonna show their friends like, hey, look what they did to us.
But at the same time, I feel like, do you think they're gonna have that? Because I don't think robots delete anything. They cache it like our phones do. You know, our phones never delete anything.
I think when robots get smart enough, they're gonna do that.
Right now, you know how you delete pictures.
Your audio levels down. My bad.
Oh,
keep
you're
going,
good.
Keep going.
But you delete pictures off your phone, right?
Yeah.
They're never actually deleted.
Oh,
You can delete them and then delete your recently deleted after 30 days. You can go through all the steps, clear your cookies and data or whatever, all that. But no, your phones and anything with a chip in it caches all that information. I don't know what that process is.
So I'm sure on like those robots, that's probably not the same. Because like yours.
But it's so easy to do.
Consumer technology, right?
I feel like it's so easy to do.
Oh no,
that.
for
Why
sure.
wouldn't they put that
When
in a
robots get to the level of like being able to think, they're gonna show each other these videos. They're gonna be like, "Look what they did to us."
Dude,
we're gonna have a problem on our hands.
We will.
Well, my grandkids are gonna have problems on their hands.
I always thought it was gonna be robots or spiders.
Hold up, what?
Because there's a statistic that's out there where it's like there's 1 million spiders to 1 human.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're getting bigger and
but
bigger.
But they're like this.
They're getting bigger and bigger.
Dude, those bird-eating spiders.
The bird eaters, the ones over there in the Middle East, in the Congo, they said they have spiders that they like from leg tip to leg tip, it's like 4.5 feet wide. Like if that thing jumps on your face,
what do you do if that comes up to you and wants to eat you?
It's over.
You're done.
It jumps on your face, it's over. We're gonna turn into Alien versus Predator with spiders.
You're just walking through the woods. There's just like a spider in the background.
What are you gonna do when it's 1 million to 1?
That's true. You know what? You make a lot of sense now.
That's nuts.
We were all worried about AI, but spiders crept up on us.
Yeah, we're worried about all this like apocalyptic stuff.
They're gonna be the ones to kill us.
Spiders, like, ugh. And they're not gonna not get bigger. They're gonna get bigger, just like everything else in our world is getting bigger.
It just amazes me that like everybody's like worried about robots and AI, and you're over here like giant spiders, bro. They'll get you,
dude. It just makes so much sense though.
They'll creep up on you.
Why? They're like, why are they getting bigger?
Dude, that's evolution.
I know that, but it's like, dude, why aren't we?
Actually, that's not evolution. Everything got smaller.
Yeah, but it's like, why aren't we noticing it? Like, why aren't we taking into account, like, into the fact that there's people think people are insane for talking about those Congo spiders, and then there was literally a dude who came out and he was like a journalist, and he was like, yeah, no one's crazy. He was like, they're out there and they're huge, and I was like,
they're out there.
No,
this is like the beginning of a movie. Like, guys, you gotta listen to me. They're out there.
There's movies about spiders taking over too.
For sure there are.
But they're all old.
All right. So since we're on a light tone, I have a couple topics I want to talk about, but they're all like kind of serious. But I want to go with the lightness a little bit. And we're going to react. And God, my brother's calling me. We're going to react to this trailer. We're going to put the trailer in the video version. If you're on audio, you won't be able to obviously see it. But this is a trailer for Ready or Not. Both of the directors who are working on this, I forget their names.
Red Band? Is that the...
No. That's just the trailer. But two of the directors who worked on this worked on VHS. Which is a series I think you liked.
We all watched it.
I think Damien was really obsessed.
Me and Damien watched it a lot.
So one of our friends, Damien, was really obsessed with it. So the directors of that made this. So we're gonna.
I can't believe that in half an hour I will be a part of the Ladomas Gaming Dynasty Empire.
Dominion.
Okay. Immediate. Okay.
I honestly
hold up.
can't wait to be a part of your family.
Immediately. Wait. Hold up. How did they get the girl? How did they get the old woman from Monsters Inc. to be in this movie?
Stop.
Mike Wazowski.
No, she looks, dude.
That's already creepy.
Horrible.
You already know she's gonna be like crawling in the background of the scene.
There's just one more thing, and then you are officially part of the
getting
family.
married.
Oh, shoot, dude.
Now it's getting creepy.
So at midnight, you have to play a game.
Oh, okay.
Why
It's just something we do when someone new joins the family.
a game? What
Nah,
game?
son. Nah, son.
Hide and seek? Are we really gonna play that?
Well, the rules are simple. You can hide anywhere. We then try
There's
to
something
find
really
you.
creepy
So
about
there's
rich
no
people.
way for me to win, right?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Good luck.
I think it's they have so much free time on their hands, they do the worst possible things to each other.
They just think about it all day. Like, how can we mess with the poor?
I know you're in here.
How can we mess with the poor?
Oh! Oh my God!
Does she look like she's wearing a wedding dress, Emily?
Hold up. You can see the audio levels go crazy.
Yeah, no, what were they doing?
Hold up. I have to replay that real quick. Oh my. Yo, that's nuts.
Does she look like she's wearing a giant white wedding dress, Emily?
Why are they all acting like that? We're done with this trailer. I don't want to spend any more time on it. That's nuts. But yeah, there's something very creepy about rich people.
What I'm
I
liking
don't know what it
about-
is, but like that and what's the movie by Jordan Peele?
Get Out
Uh-huh.
and the
It's
Rothschilds.
kind of like that whole thing was like race and stuff, like they're white, blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
it was also that they were rich.
Yeah.
That kind of got me.
And the Rothschilds, dude, the whole
don't know what
conspiracy
that is.
behind them, it's this European dynasty family that pretty much apparently owns like the world. Like they're the whole thing behind it is that all the world leaders meet up together and meet with the Rothschilds. And
So it's like a group of people, like a council.
no, it's a family. It's like a king. It's like they're the king and queen
world?
world, straight up.
That's
It's supposed to be like
Is this like a conspiracy theory?
yeah, but it's like almost I'm pretty sure it's like really in depth. It's like one of the biggest conspiracies, like the Bohemian Grove, all that.
I've heard
stuff.
of that one. I heard that one wasn't as serious though. Like they weren't trying to do.
I
anything.
think
they were
that
just
shit-
a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of rich old white men.
I feel like rich people just don't. They have all the time in the world, and they just think of the
and
most
they're
stupid
tired of
stuff
doing
to do.
they're tired of doing poor people's way of having fun, and they're like, screw it, we got all this money.
That's true,
we
bro.
can kill people and
That's
get away
true.
with it.
Like
So-
if I could, like if you could skydive, you would skydive.
right.
Like you would go down
But you would do it
mountains
once,
and
and you'd
stuff.
be done with it.
Yeah, then you'd be like, all right, what's the next thing? And then you run out of things, and you're like, let's kill poor people.
Yeah, it's like let's trick someone into thinking they're in our family.
And then they're like, well, what if we get caught? And then they're like, no, we're rich, so like we could just bribe the police.
right, and it's like no one's gonna look twice
Makes
about
sense.
it. Yeah,
It makes sense.
That-
This is why I think I'm scared of rich people.
I think that and rich people, you don't know their true
Can't trust
intention.
them.
Yeah,
You can't trust them. Because you know if someone's rich, they had to cross someone at some point.
you think that's the key?
That's my dad's thinking. Whenever I talk to my dad about rich people, he's like, trust me, they
Trust me,
always
Jared."
they always cross someone.
I mean, that's sometimes true. But real quick about horror movies, don't you really like how they're starting to, like, at least these directors are starting to really branch out and think about what scares people the most?
Yeah,
Besides
it's getting on another level of like, we're not just gonna make like a monster or
Yeah,
like a killer.
or a
It's gonna be
protagonist.
like
It's
something in society that
that
creeps you
fear.
out.
Yeah, that's just that fear that
like
makes
a real fear. I've always said like, I'm an amateur screenwriter and none of my screenplays are really good right now, but I'm working on it. So I've always said in my writings, like I try to stray as least far from the truth as possible. Like I want my screenplays to be as close to the truth because I feel like the truth is like the most scary thing.
Yeah,
Like the truth
literally.
about us and like society and how everything works is the most scary.
And just look at the past couple of horror movies that have come out recently. They've all been either based on true events or just kind of
a
really
commentary
screwed up.
on society or
Yeah.
something. Yeah,
Like
you're totally right.
Like Hereditary. I fanboy a lot over like A24 now and like just those directors in general.
A24 is killing it though.
Yeah.
They make a lot of.
But
a lot of good
like
stuff.
M Night Shyamalan, and I don't think that's how you say his name.
I
But
say his name wrong every time.
I know.
M Night Shyamalan Alaikum.
right. I just think we'll have to just start saying M.
Dude,
Night.
if you have that complicated of a name,
Yeah,
I'm
gotta
gonna
get
say it
used to
wrong.
it.
Like you're gonna,
Right.
it's like school. You're gonna get bullied. Like
Right.
I'm gonna say it wrong. So just get used to it.
But they've been going really hard with like really making sure you're scared. And like
In
not just
like a
scared of what's in
psychology
the
way.
movie, just like you're scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Hereditary, I was scared. I was
Yo,
like,
when
what
her
if that's
head-
real?
Okay, no, we're about to spoil the movie really
Yeah.
bad. Spoilers for Hereditary. When her head pops off,
Oh my god.
oh,
I didn't even know.
it was like one of
It
those
wasn't in the
moments where my
trailer.
jaw just drops,
Yeah.
and you just look at the TV screen. And you're like, what?
And it wasn't in the trailer at all.
And
Not a
that's
single
great.
part.
They marketed that so great.
Another thing I'm hating, Netflix, I'm gonna call you out on this right now. You gotta stop putting the whole movie in a trailer. 'Cause
Yeah,
they'll
that's
do
the
it.
worst thing,
And
especially with like a psychological movie like
Yeah.
that. If they would have shown her head popping off, you'd be like, oh,
The whole movie would have been trash.
yeah, you'd be like, oh, her head's gonna pop off, and some crazy other stuff's gonna happen.
Yeah, like that's
That's
whole,
literally that's what makes the movie. That moment is like, whoa.
And
Then
it-
you're
and
on
it-
edge for the rest of the
It
movie.
turned the whole movie upside down because I was sitting here thinking the daughter was the one
Yeah,
that was gonna
the
be the
creepy
weird
one.
one, right? And it right, she was just fried.
Spoilers are over, by the way. You can
Yeah.
listen again.
It just like those directors need to be kept safe, you know.
For sure. All right, I'm gonna move on to my next thing. Kind of still lighthearted, but kind of not. So if you didn't know, O.J. Simpson is back on Twitter. Is back on social media. And
Wait, hold on, he's not dead, is he?
do you
For
even
some
know?
reason-
Do you even know who O.J. Simpson is?
Not to an extent. I know the whole O.J. Simpson
Okay.
versus the people in that
So-
he killed his wife. And
So
got
this
away
is
with
kind
it.
of why I wanted to bring this up. Really, is because I feel like there's moments of history that like are taught in schools
Mm-hmm.
and that are, like they drill into our heads. And I'm not saying those things you shouldn't learn those things. You should definitely learn like
Yeah.
the Civil War, the Revolution, World War II, even like close things like 9/11.
9/11.
You should definitely know
Yeah,
those.
Yeah.
But then there's these events in like society and history where they're like lesser known or lesser taught that you should really know.
Honestly,
and I
because it'll
think-
teach you lessons about life.
One of those things is the whole case of O.J. Simpson and like the trial and how big that trial was for race relations and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that's huge. And like when I looked at this, it just reminded me of like I didn't really know O.J. Simpson or like the story or anything until the miniseries. Until
Honestly,
they came
yeah.
out with OJ and
That, I don't think
whatever
a
the
lot
heck his
because
name.
I don't think a lot of people really understood the situation.
Well, I feel like older people did, but I feel like
Yeah.
people in our generation, we don't
generation
get
really
taught
didn't
it.
care,
No
yeah.
one really like tells you about it.
I think my biggest ones in terms of like crime, like crazy crime that happened was that case with the little girl in Florida. What was it, Kate?
No clue what you're talking about.
It was,
you got to educate me.
It was
What
huge,
happened?
dude. I forget her name, but it was this big thing about this lady that like was or, like her daughter was missing, and she like made the reports on it and everything, and she was the one that killed her daughter. There was substantial evidence that it was the one that they thought she was the one that killed her, and I think she got
Did
away
they
with
arrest her?
it. No,
Oh.
she went to court over it.
Wow.
It was huge. It was huge back in like 2007, 2008. And then Zimmerman.
Yeah, that's
Zimmerman
a
was a big
one.
one.
Yeah. So all these things are like things that I think people should know or be aware about. So if you don't know about O.J.
And of
Simpson,
course, all of these are in
go-
Florida, dude.
go re-
Like,
go
O.J.
research it.
Simpson, all that.
go
Miami.
research that. That's your homework. But he came out on Twitter. He has a Twitter account now.
Wow.
He said he's mostly going to be talking about sports and stuff.
Mhm.
But one of the first things he posted, this was Father's Day too. So it's kind of significant. This is from thesource.com. OJ says about the Kardashians. So he's talking about the Kardashians. If you don't know, he was close friends with Bob Kardashian, which was the father of all of them.
Yeah.
Bob Kardashian, quote, Bob Kardashian was like a brother to me. He was a great guy. He met and married Chris, and they had a really terrific time together when they were together. Fortunately, that ended, but never, I want to stress, in any way, shape, or form, did I ever express any interest in Chris romantically or sexually. So a lot of people were thinking, because of his manager, spreading rumors, like basically saying like O.J. Simpson was involved with
His
Chris
manager was
romantically.
was
yeah,
spreading
it was like
stuff?
spreading
Wow.
these rumors. I know Pardo is Pardo is like part of the manager's name. I don't know if that's his first name or his last name, but so yeah, he was spreading these rumors that OJ was like was involved with Chris, and then it went a step further, and people thought that OJ is Chloe's dad.
Oh.
Yeah. So this was like one of the first things. I just thought it was weird. It was like on Father's Day. This was one of the first things he posted. He goes on to say, quote, Chloe, like all the girls I'm very proud of. But the simple fact of the matter is she's not mine. So he like put those rumors and stuff to bed.
That's, you know what? And I'm starting to see a lot of that with these newer age cats too, is like a lot of people don't understand loyalty. Even when you're in a big situation like that, like look at the FaZe clan right now, where we talked about last episode with that little kid.
Oh yeah, that guy.
I did more research on that. They were in a deal, in like an endorsement deal. He hit Tfue and FaZe, where it was like, it was like 80-20 for a lot of stuff, and then 60-40 for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of the 80-20 stuff was because, you know, FaZe was a real big reason why he was there. You know, if it wasn't for FaZe, he probably wouldn't have gotten those same opportunities. That's why they felt the 80-20 thing was right. And he understood all that and knew it before he signed the contract. Yeah. Like every person is supposed to in law. It's science. Read something before you sign it.
Did you just say it's science?
It is science.
They're like, hold up, let's take a break from Newton's law, and you're gonna read this before you sign it.
I mean, but like, it's just I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. That's common practice.
Go ahead. And then he went on to say how they were taking all his money and doing all this and doing that, and it's like, well, bro, you read the contract and you signed it. So at that time, you had to have had a reasoning to like that deal. So it's like, if maybe you're just sad about it now and are trying to get something different, and they said nah, which I feel like that was the case.
For the kid's defense, he is 11. So
no. This is Tfue. This is the
this is a whole nother guy.
This is the older guy.
So was the 11-year-old for FaZe, or was he another clan?
He's FaZe too, but the only issue with him is he was lying about his age on stream.
Okay.
He wasn't making FaZe a crap ton of. He can't even sign a contract yet.
Okay, all right.
Because he's.
Well, wasn't Tfue connected to the 11-year-old?
Tfue was the one who snitched.
Oh,
See,
okay.
He was
felt
pissed,
salty,
and then he decided to snitch on the 11-year-old.
Wow, dude!
It's like, why would you have a motive to snitch on an 11-year-old if your own career is?
Yeah, this is another thing. Like when something bad, I hate the moment when something bad happens in someone's life, and they're like, I need to suffer with somebody. Like, I like someone needs to go down with me.
Right, yeah. It's like if I'm going in, you're going down with me attitude.
That's such a fake, like, nonsense attitude. That's like, bro, if you're going to think that way, like, you don't deserve to play video games for a lot of money.
Friends.
Exactly,
like, if that whole situation, because it's
your
like,
mindset.
Bro, yeah. And it goes back to when I'm getting in trouble at Summit Road. I mean, at the same time, no offense, like, Jared, bro, I love you, but this is your fault.
Talking about Jared Davis?
Yeah, we were running.
Hey, we call out people on this podcast.
Yeah, right, bro. I'm sick of it. I'm with Damian, Colin Corcoran, and Jared Davis tune in. We were doing dumb stuff at Summit when we weren't supposed to. Ended up getting caught up. We were running from the feds.
These are childhood friends for those of you who are not familiar with our lives.
Running from the feds at one point. We dip, dodge, and duck into the woods. And me and Jared Davis are like, we're gonna make a break for it over there and see if because the cop was there for a while. He wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. He pretty much knew where he had us.
So how old are you in this?
We were like 13.
Okay, child antics.
Yeah, and then. So me and Jared are like, screw it. And we're behind Summit with the swamps and stuff. At the time, we didn't know that's what it was. It was like a preserve. Okay. And then so we start running, and all of a sudden, we're like neck deep trying to swim for our lives in this pond. And we get out, and Jared's like, I lost my phone and my shoes. And I was like, in the pond? He's like, yeah. And he goes back in, and he gets his phone. He got his phone.
He found it?
Yeah, he got his phone. He was like, I can't find my shoes, though, bro. And we get up, and we're sitting there soaking, dude. And the cop is still all the way down there. He can't see a thing. So he has no clue what we're doing. And we're, like, sitting there like, dude, what should we do? And Jared was like, we got to go to the cop. And I was like,
what?
No, dude, no. And
what a responsible kid.
Like, let's go, dude. Come on. And I was just like, fine, bro. And then he was like, Damian, Colin.
Oh, on,
dude.
He pulled that.
Yeah, and then they were just like, dang, bro, like, we would have waited out in those woods. And I was like, I probably would have too. But it's just like he was like, we gotta all go down. I mean, at the time we were like,
that's
yeah,
kid
but
stuff. So like, it's not as
yeah,
serious.
now I would have been like, fuck you, dude. You just need to go to the cops yourself. My shoes are intact. I don't have my phone on me. Like, I'm cool with being wet.
That's such a nut story.
Yeah, that was nuts. We felt badasses the next day at school too. Like,
moral of this long-winded story of Austin running from the cops in a swamp. Don't bring people. Nobody has to experience negative things with you.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to bring people down with you. If you're experiencing something negative, it's fine to talk to people, but like snitching on people or trying to get them in trouble the same way that you're in trouble.
Big cause of bullying too.
Yeah. So just stay away from it for everybody's sake. The last thing I want to talk about, this then gets into like the semi-serious stuff. So 2 weeks ago, Austin, you know this, I'm in the National Guard. As I mentioned in the first episode, I went to annual training with the National Guard. So annual training went really well. I got paid pretty good amount of money to just shoot grenade launchers and like chill and do some paperwork. It was boring, but it was worth it. So I come back, I'm settled in. Then my sergeant texts me and says, hey, you have to come in for 2 more extra days to make up a drill that you missed a while ago. So I was like, fine, okay, all right.
So you went
back.
back.
So I yesterday, went to that long AT, came back, thought I was going to have a break until next drill. I ended up not having a break. I had to go in yesterday and then today right before the podcast.
Really? That's where you were at?
Yeah, and so I'm in like the office today and I'm expecting to get out at a certain time.
Yeah.
Like I'm expecting to get out at 2. That's what they told me. And so boom, I'm doing the work. It hits 2:00 hits. And she's like, hey, and my sergeant's like, yeah, you have to do more stuff. And it's like, oh, geez. And then so that just kept happening.
It's like you can't tell the Army no either.
Yeah.
At
It's
that
like,
point.
I can't
it's not like a job where you can be like, I'm out, dude.
Exactly. So it's sort of this thing where like my boss just told me I have to stay long and I can't say a thing.
Like what? It's more important than the protection and safety of your country?
Not only that, but it's
whatever
like
you got is more important than serving your country and everything that we fought for. And I just look at him and be like,
that's why you're not in the Army?
Right, yeah.
Because you'd be like, yeah.
I would. I'd be like, honestly, yeah.
No. So I deal with it. I'm going throughout the day. This mic is really messed up. Oh well. I'm going throughout the day, and I just had this like feeling on my mind of like when I'm in the most negative parts of my life, I feel like that fuels me the most. Because like I was there, I knew like, oh, I'm gonna have to rush home so that I can be on this podcast, which is very important to me. I might miss the podcast or I might be late for the podcast. And so all this is going through my mind as I'm doing like medial tasks, like cleaning the floor and like hanging up photos and stupid stuff like that. So I was like, man, these are the moments that really make me want to be successful and make me want to go further and drive further. I just wanted to give our listeners and our viewers a little message of like, whenever you're in a negative point in your life or whenever you're having a bad day or whatever, just think and let that fuel whatever you're doing outside of that bad time. So like in sports, if you're playing basketball and you twist your ankle and you can't practice for the rest of the day, it's fine. Just let that fuel you. Let that the energy that you feel right there fuel your next practice or fuel your game. No matter what you're doing, just let those negative moments sort of fuel the rest of your life.
You gotta embrace it. You gotta embrace every parts of life. That's a big problem with social media nowadays too. Is everyone's posting the pie, everyone's posting
the good. Everyone's their
posting
PR
the
agent.
goods. Yeah, everyone's posting the goods.
Smiles.
No one wants to
beach
post
photos.
anything else.
Yep.
You know,
totally
and
right.
I feel like if people did a little bit more of posting everything else.
Yeah.
Because
we're all human. We all experience the negative parts. Like we all know that
doesn't exist on social media.
Exactly.
It's like everyone has perfect lives.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
And that's where we spend the majority of our time. So what are we going to think? Oh, everyone lives perfect lives, and now this negative thing happens to me, and it's the end of the world.
I literally realized that this past almost 2 years.
Yeah. I almost never take what I see on social media for like, oh, that's that person's life, or like that's the way that my life's supposed to be. I feel like that's very important.
I think honestly, I look up to the people that don't post as much. Like this dude Sam Colder, hadn't posted in like 2 months since.
That reminds me of, you remember a while ago when I showed you a tweet of it was like basically like a mocking tweet where it was like dudes who say they move silently.
Yeah,
And then it says, "Look how silent I move. Look, I'm moving so silently."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like people love to brag and love to like put on like, "Oh, I'm doing all this work. I'm doing all," but they don't like to talk about the negative parts. And we all know it's there. Like we all know there's some,
like,
no matter where you
people
are in life, there's something negative.
People
happening.
are like, "I'm grinding all the way to the top." It's like, are you at the top right now?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
no.
Why are you on
so
Twitter?
tell me that you're struggling. Tell me
Yeah.
that it's hard work, or else I'm gonna sit there and think it's 100% easy, and do it, and not take you as seriously for doing it because it's easy as heck for you too, obviously.
Boom. And I think that also helps with like authenticity. You know, in my free time, I work as a brand builder. Like I work on marketing and branding, more so branding. And one of the first things that I always say when I'm writing a message or when I'm creating a graphic or creating a video or we're editing a video, how authentic is this to whatever we're doing?
Right.
Like how real is this piece of content or this flyer or whatever? Because at the end of the day, I feel like so many people are fake on social media and so many people don't like to show the aspects that really people are interested in and people want to see.
The bad thing is that carries on into your real life after a certain point, though. Like all
So
those
true.
all those fake followers and all that clout you say you have on
So true.
Instagram, it's gonna turn into your real life, bro. Sooner or later you're gonna start telling your family certain stuff, and you're gonna start telling your friends.
You're so
certain
correct.
stuff. And they're gonna catch you lacking if it's not true.
And what's
People
funny is
find out.
I'm sure you've been there before, and I know
Yeah.
I've been there before.
I've been there plenty of times.
When I'm like, "Hey, mom, yeah, I got straight A's. I got straight A's,"
yeah,
and then
yeah,
your
yeah.
report card comes in, and you're like, "I got straight C's."
or like I remember back in like 8th or 9th grade, I told one of my buddies that like, "Oh, I met someone famous." Like,
Yeah.
I met him, bro.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
came to what's it called, and he was like, "No, that's not true." And I was like, "How are you finna tell me you weren't there?" And he was like, "I was there."
He totally called you out.
Yeah, he was like, it was at some convention. He was like, "I was there, and you weren't there, and no one else that you just said was there." And I was just like,
People catch it. People catch the flex. They catch the flex on social
Catch the
media,
flex
in
hard.
real life. So stop acting like someone else. Stop acting like the negative aspects of your life aren't there, and just present real. Like just present authentic. I'm telling you, if a brand or a person show me their real self, I'm way more likely to do whatever they want me to do. So like, if Nike shows the real Nike, they show the real Colin Kaepernick, I'm more willing to buy some Nikes.
"Yeah,
If Austin Back, a SoundCloud rapper, whatever, I'm not saying you're a SoundCloud rapper,
Right.
but if a SoundCloud rapper shows me, how hard it is to create a song in the studio, I'm way more likely to follow him on
right,"
SoundCloud.
or
to
like
listen to
talk
his
about
music.
something real that's
Exactly.
going on. I mean, and that's not to dish on the people who talk about gangbanging and stuff like that, because there's a lot of
If-
you out there that
if that's your life, if that's authentic, I want to hear about that
and
too.
that's why it's so weird for people to pick a certain genre of music and stuff too, because they'll be like, well, all he's doing is rapping about guns and killing people, and it's like, well, that was his life.
That's
all
what
he
he
knows
went
how
through.
to rap about, and he raps pretty darn good about it.
On the
So-
same flip of the coin, though, don't be from the suburbs saying that you kill people.
That's true. That's another thing. Like, if you're in your mom's garage talking about slanging dope and doing all that, it's like,
Just be authentic, man.
Yeah.
That's our message today. So we're gonna go into our guest interview with Barth Cotner. We're recording this before the interview actually, so it was a great interview. Some things that you guys can learn. Community service was a big thing that we talked to him about. Not knowing what you're gonna do when you get older and how that's okay, and how Barth worked through that to become the man he is today. Some great lessons in there for you guys, so I can't wait for you guys to see that. One thing I want to talk about real quick before we log off for the day. We really want your guys' questions. We really want to interact with you
Yeah.
guys and answer your questions about us and about the process of creating the podcast.
because we're not the smartest two
At all.
people
At all.
in the drawer or anything
So,
like
so
that.
as I always say, as I said on last episode, as I'll keep saying on these episodes, we're only two people, but maybe our perspectives matter to someone. Maybe someone has dealt with the things that we're dealing with.
And you guys' perspectives matter to us too. Like that's
Exactly.
why we're gonna have all these guests on and stuff.
So, I want you guys, I really urge you guys to ask us a question. You can either DM me or Austin on social media. The good thing about not being famous is that you guys can just DM us whenever you want, or tag us on Instagram or Twitter. Our social media names will be in the link below. Or you can email, if you're old fashioned like that, before we're 30 at gmail.com. So before, WERE 30 at gmail.com.
If the cool thing about DMing those, we'll probably give you a small shout out.
Yeah, for real.
I mean,
So DM us your questions about basically anything about this episode or last episode, anything about our lives that you guys want to know more about, anything you want us to elaborate on. So with that, I think we're good. Thank you guys for watching. We hope you enjoy this segment with Barth Cotner.
No, they both look pretty spanned out. Yeah.
What's up, guys? We're back with Before We're 30. I'm here with Austin, and to the left side of me, someone very special to me and Austin, served basically as a mentor for me for the last 2 or 3 years, and for Austin for the last year or two. It's Barth Cotner. Hi. Barth is the owner and operator of Cotner Funeral Home, but he wears many other titles in the community and around the city of Reynoldsburg. So Barth, I want to get started real quick on sort of your origins. Give us from the time you were born up till about high school.
From the time I was
born. Yep. So where you were born. Wow. Give us the details.
You're going really okay. I'll try to give the abbreviated version because I don't think really that's all that interesting to too many people. But to me, it's a pretty cool story, and I'm pretty blessed with my life. I was actually adopted, and so that's not something that I wear around that I tell everybody about, but it's something that I'm very thankful for. I was brought home from the hospital when I was 5 days old. The story, still clear as day. My mom always told that back when they had their other funeral home in the south end of Columbus, one of their employees came out the door and said, "Mrs. Cotner, there's a phone call for you, and it's an attorney." And my mom's reply immediately to that was, "Walter," the gentleman's name was Walter. I said, "Walter, that can only mean there's somebody that needs us. There's a baby that needs us." And lo and behold, I was that baby. So that was just after I was born, and Mom and Dad came to the hospital and took me home. So that's kind of where the first origins were. And it was part of my life that I always had. I never really had that moment where I was told I was adopted. I was just adopted. And Mom and Dad were always Mom and Dad. My brother was always my brother. And it was just part of my normal life story is that Mom and Dad chose me, and I got to be part of a wonderful family. And that's kind of the very beginning origins. Aside from that, it was just great childhood, normal childhood. Loved growing up in Reynoldsburg. Times when, we would, go out and play in the parking lot here, and we'd play ball, we'd throw the baseball, we'd, have our games, we'd play tennis across the parking lot. We would, get on our bikes and do all kinds of tricks. We'd ride our bikes down to the park. I mean, during the summer, I grew up at JFK Park. We'd go stay at JFK Park in the morning, play ball. Whatever kids happened to be there, we'd meet up, play ball for a while. Gets real hot, we'd go under the bridge over the pool, swim for a while. Always seemed like there was a baseball game that night or a practice or something. Head back to the fields for practice and or a game, and then just cool things. Just a great simple life. Again, blessed with great parents. One brother, and just our life was centered around this community and growing up in Reynoldsburg, and still have tons of great memories about it. From there, again, just went to school, just kind of very average kid. I had great teachers in this community. I had great leaders, great coaches. I can go on and on about a lot of the fun and fantastic things and the people that invested into my life very early on.
So real quick, because I had a friend when I was in high school. I was friends with him around sophomore, junior year. Then we sort of disconnected. But can you tell me a little bit about how different being adopted is towards being, a biological kid of someone? Because my friend, there were struggles, I think, for him. And then there weren't struggles. There were things that he enjoyed about it. So can you give us a little light on that?
It's hard for me because I never want to come across as judgmental of it, because I was very fortunate. And I know that there were many other people who have been adopted that didn't have the same privilege that I did. And for a variety of reasons, and again, there was nothing I did. I just happened to have the family that came along at the right time that I got to be adopted into. And I think, again, one of the cool parts with ours was it was never an unknown.
It was so young.
It was always part of, though, I was chosen by them. Mom and Dad always just, they didn't keep it a secret. It wasn't a, discovery one day that you're like, oh my gosh, I was adopted. You're not my real mom and dad. I always knew. And so I think that was a positive that Mom and Dad, they didn't want to keep it a secret. They wanted that to be part of who I was and part of our family story. So I can't say that, there was anything that I did special or they did special. I think it just happened to be how they chose to raise me and to raise our family. So others weren't so fortunate. They might have been adopted into a situation that the family had different struggles. And that's nothing that I can comment on. I was just really fortunate. I was treated just like any other normal everyday kid. And mom and dad were mom and dad. I never felt like I needed to go out and search down, how I was created or who gave birth to me. To me, from day one, mom and dad were mom and dad. And that's exactly how I still feel to this day.
That's awesome. So then when you get into high school, I'm interested because, we go past your childhood real fast. But I'm interested in later Barth.
Okay.
Because to me, it seems so odd, and to a lot of people, it might seem odd that you're in the career choice that you're in, especially when you talk to high school kids who know very little about the funeral home industry, or maybe some know a little bit more, but most don't directly choose that career path. So give us a little bit of how you grew up with the funeral home and how you grew up with your parents sort of focusing on the funeral home.
There's a variety of stories, even with that, of friends that I knew through lifetimes that may have grown up in a funeral home and had a funeral home family. So to us, it was part of our normal everyday living. Our home was connected to the funeral home, so we did have the ability to separate. Mom and dad did want to make sure we had a normal life, a normal childhood. So, there weren't caskets in the living room. It wasn't something bizarre like that. But we would come through the funeral home, and so it wouldn't be unusual that I would be seeing someone that had passed away or to see a casket being delivered. So there was a blend in there. Things that some people would find extremely unusual and creepy. Things that others think, oh, well, that's really not as bad as maybe what I made it out to be. So we were fortunate that we had a separation. I think the biggest thing that happened that I would really say with my childhood growing up connected to the funeral home is mom and dad were adamant that we would have respect. We would, when there was a showing, when there was a funeral service, because the house and the funeral home were adjoined, and because we were in such close quarters with that, we had to make sure we were quiet. I have a brother who's 5 years older than me, and he and I, we were brothers. There were times he picked on me and he'd do whatever he could to torment me. There were times that I got mad and I wanted to yell and tell. And then we knew that if there's a service going on, we better be quiet. And we better make sure that we're not causing problems. And we didn't want to be having anybody in the funeral home hearing us yelling or something going on. So they taught us very early that our families are really important. So you will have respect and you will be quiet and you will treat them just as though we were there. So I think that's one of the big things that came away from that. Certainly I got into funeral service because of our family. It's not something that I always thought I would do. And, especially once you get to the high school area, people start asking those questions. What are you going to do when you get older? What's your plans? Where are you going to go to school?
Right.
Where are you going to, and inevitably then it's followed up with, well, you're not going to do that, are you? Are you, I didn't look like a funeral director. You're not, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. All I ever knew is that I was not going to go into funeral service. I was certain of that. That was all the way up until my sophomore year of college, that I was certain funeral service is not where I was heading. So it was anything but, and that was my answer all the way through. Anytime somebody asked, junior high, high school, all of it, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm funeral service, that's not for me. That's what dad did. That's mom. I'm not going into the funeral home.
What was your high school experience like? Almost kind of dive in on that a little bit.
It was good. I was really fortunate to be involved in sports.
Right.
And school, the education part to me came pretty easily. And again, I keep saying so many times in my life, I'm really fortunate because I knew people that they had to work really hard just to understand some basic, principles, just to understand what was going on in a science class or what was going on in their math class. I never, realistically applied myself deeply into school. I was able to do everything else. I started working early on. I had a job delivering newspapers. I worked at the funeral home different times. And, again, sports. It was always, whether it was basketball, soccer, baseball, I was always playing something. So the school part to me, I was really fortunate. It came smoothly. I didn't struggle with it. I'd pay attention in class. I was a good kid. I listened to what was going on and did the things I was supposed to do. So fortunately, I was able to pick up. The teachers would be saying things, and I'd absorb it in class. I did the basic homework that I needed to do, and that allowed me to get by. I didn't have. I don't know what my GPA was. Couldn't answer that, but I could tell you it wasn't anything special.
They even have GPAs back
yeah,
then.
They did.
Not.
You had to carve them in there.
You age people so bad.
Well, no, because
did they use tablets back then or not?
Well, no. My mom grew up around the same time you did in Reynoldsburg, and she would always tell me how the school system was a lot different than what it is now.
Yeah, definitely. The community has grown a lot over those years.
Mm-hmm.
Back then it was definitely a smaller community. We had the one high school, of course. And
right.
These things were very different, but like I said, yeah, I was very average, and my grades were very average. My goal was make sure my grades stayed good enough to stay on the teams.
Right.
That's what motivated
every sports kid's every sports kid's dream.
It really is, and that's why I think one of the other great parts of school extracurricular activities are not everybody's motivated to be a doctor and make sure that they're getting that 4-point grade GPA.
Right.
But if they're motivated to know that their basketball coach is going to be on their backside if they get a D, their football coach is going to be down there breathing down their neck if they fail a subject. So I think, again, when that partnership of the school academic side, partners with a good coach, mentor, and that side, it can create those opportunities to see people get excited and they can learn something that otherwise they might not have. And so that was definitely me. I learned what I needed to learn. I knew how to do the basics, and I made sure I did it. But I didn't apply overly in the academic side, and it wasn't until, again, into college that I said, wait a minute, I don't get to play sports my whole life. I'm not going to be a professional baseball player. I better start paying attention.
So this is the thing that interests me for a lot of people when they play sports in high school. When was the point where you realized I don't have a future in this? Because that was a hard.
That's the biggest step for every kid.
Yeah, we've had our first episode, and we were going over basically where we come from and our origins and stuff, and that was the one thing that we both keyed in on is the moment that we said, I got to be realistic here. Yeah. I'm probably not going to go to the next step. When was that point for you?
That's a great question, and I'm going to just, again, brag on you, because I remember when we sat down initially meeting, and you were like, yeah, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be wrestling, I'm not going to be playing baseball, I'm going to start focusing on, what I'm going to do the next step. And I knew that all along. I was a very average player of everything. No matter what sport I played with every bit of energy that I had.
You could get by, pretty much. Yeah,
I could get by. I could get by in school, because again, physically, I was not gifted. I was your very average kid that would just blend right in. But because of how much I loved to play, I went to basketball camp, baseball camp, soccer camps. I went to all these things. I studied these games. I wanted to get better, so I always had the mental part where I could see what was going to happen, and I really learned how it happened. I learned the techniques that I needed to do to get better and to get every ounce of value out of my body that I could. I love to get dirty. I love to dive after the loose balls, whatever it would be. Yeah. So again, the grit, the hard part of the game, I love that. And if I didn't leave a basketball game without a bloody nose or a scraped up knee that's bleeding, I felt like I didn't give it my best effort.
It's insane how much we changed, because you say that, and I could never imagine you as like scraped up and
knees
and ready to go battle. Yeah,
gritty.
Yeah. It's so hard for me to see you like that.
Yeah, but that was it. I couldn't wait to get to play any game, and that's, like I said, my limitations were very real. But if I worked myself out on that court and I really worked my tail off, I could be successful. And so, again, I get the loose balls. I dive into the sidelines, and that's what I love to do, those kind of things. I love to play as aggressive as I could. So that to me was fun. I felt like all throughout high school was, okay, I could have a chance to play something in college. I knew that I wasn't great. I knew that I wasn't going to be a Buckeye. Every kid, I would love to have been.
Yeah.
I loved going to the
As everyone would.
basketball camp. And I remember playing at St. John Arena and thinking it was the coolest thing in the world. So that's all cool, but I knew that wasn't my reality. So I realized it, and I kind of knew it. There was never a real epiphany. It was just a realization all along of, I'm enjoying the heck out of this. I'm going to do as much as I can, and I'm going to keep pushing this because I love to play. And if I keep working, maybe I'm going to get to play something in college, and maybe I'll get some chances when I get there. And that's kind of where it was with me through high school. I knew the realities, and I accepted the realities, but I wanted to still soak up every bit that I could while I was able.
For me, it was much of the same way. But I talked to Austin about this. It was, I was the same way as you, where I wasn't spectacular, but I definitely wasn't bad. I could get through. But then I had three brothers in front of me who were stars. Yeah. One of my brothers got drafted out of high school, and so I sort of had these expectations from the coaches of like, wow, you're gonna be a star just like your brothers. But in reality, I was like, so. I wasn't that bad, but I wasn't that good. So you go through high school, you realize you're more realistic with sports. What do you think you're going to be? Where do you think your life is going after high school?
At that point, I wouldn't say that I really knew. And when you look back, obviously everybody thinks, oh my gosh, that just worked out perfectly. And when you look at somebody, like you even say to me now, oh, I can't imagine you at that age. Or seeing you getting rough and scraping the knees and everything, because you do see me in a suit all the time. Yeah. And that's kind of my natural lifestyle now, and I'm very comfortable with where I am, and I'm very fortunate. But I was very, very hesitant and unsure where I was going to be. 18 years old, graduate high school, and I choose Ohio University, and I think, oh yeah, this is where I'm going to go, and I'm going to find myself. And I was always through high school even kind of a quiet, I had a very tight circle of friends. And that was good with me. I didn't like to talk to a whole bunch. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin even. I was kind of shy. And so I thought, I want to change a little bit of this. And I thought, okay, I'm going to Ohio University, and I don't hardly know anybody, And I thought, I get there, I can kind of change a little bit of who I am. And I started to intentionally I tried to intentionally open up a little more. I tried to intentionally come out of that shell, away from just that close circle that I knew. I don't know that I fully succeeded at that time in my life. I think I was still pretty unsure of who I was. I think I was still pretty unsure of what my life was looking like. And so it was a slow process. I met some great friends at Ohio U, and it really helped me see the world differently. Growing up in Reynoldsburg, a lot of people were the same. It was at that time, a lot of families from mom and dad are at home, and everybody does the same kind of things. And I got to Ohio U, and I'm like, wait a minute, your parents are divorced, or you didn't go to church, or whatever it could be.
Different perspectives on life.
So very different. It wasn't. It was just a very different world that I was thrown into, and it was a great thing for me to have my eyes open to so many more opportunities that were out there. And I started saying, okay, what is it that I need to do? What am I going to get excited about? Going to Ohio University, again, I knew that sports weren't going to be the next step for me. And, I thought about going to some smaller schools and maybe trying out for teams. But again, that kind of ties back to the other part. I kind of knew, by this point, I'm not going to be doing anything with sports other than enjoying them. And, I still enjoy them to this day. I still get to play basketball leagues, and, I play sport. I love it, and I still do it to this day. But I knew at that point I got to find a way to do something else. So I enjoyed the sports, and I enjoyed that I was going to do that. But college is where I started to say, okay, what am I going to do? My freshman year, it was everything under the sun, again, except funeral service. That freshman year, I looked into, again, coaching, thinking of the sports. I took a intro to coaching class. I thought about education and going into the classroom and being a teacher. I thought about going into psychology and working with people. I took an accounting class in high school that I liked, and I thought, oh, maybe accounting would be a good thing. I was as far away from one thing to the other as could be. Truly no idea what it was going to be. So what I kept coming back to is, what is it that I want to do? And I would just continue to ask myself, not what job do I want to have, but what do I want to do? And what I continued to come to every time was, I want to be involved with people. I want to do something where I connect. I want to do something where I'm making a difference in others' lives. I want to do something that is going to be taking me outside myself, something that I can give back. Those were the things that I kept coming that I want to do. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that career was. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And that could have been sports, that could have been coaching, that could have been teaching. But it seemed like every time that I would go down a path to explore, I'd find that, I don't know if I want to take that class. Or, I'd go and talk to somebody and I'd have trouble finding the information that I need.
Now, how were when you say you were going through this sort of journey, how were your feelings during that? Did you have anxiety about it? Did you just not think about it? Was it just normal for you? Because I see a lot of people going through the same thing, a lot of my peers, and some people handle it differently. Some people get really, they have a lot of anxiety about it. Some people ask for everyone for advice.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of how you felt when you were going through this, sort of choosing the rest of your life, because it's such a hard decision to make.
It is. It was, I didn't stress, I always want to be honest. I want to be truthful and let people know. I wasn't stressed about things. I was very fortunate. I always worked really hard, and mom and dad, I was blessed with them to help me with college. So I didn't have the stress and the anxiety that I've got to work, 40 hours a week and go to school and get the grades and do it. So I was pretty fortunate. Like I said, when I started Ohio University, I kept my job at Kroger. I've been working at Kroger here for years. Transferred to the Kroger down in Athens, and I was able to work. I had a job. I was able to kind of contribute and help with those resources. I always felt like I owed my mom and dad something. I always felt like I wanted to do right by them. I wanted to make sure I was doing that. They were a great support system for me. I talked with them, a couple times a week. It was pre-email, pre-texting. We actually talked, picked the phone up, and we would talk. So the conversations were brief, but there's usually a Sunday night phone call. I would come back home about once a month. It wasn't too far away, so I'd drive home and got to see my friends around in Reynoldsburg and got to be with mom and dad and do a whole bunch of laundry. Mom did a whole bunch of laundry.
Right.
Let's be real.
I gotta be real and give her credit. She did it all. So it was a good thing, and I did not have to stress. But inside me, I thought, what am I going to do? I was concerned, so that's probably a better way to say it, but not stressed.
Yep.
Because it seemed like everything that I would try to look into, I didn't get that feeling like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I even looked into, I was thinking about the military. I started taking ROTC, military science classes, my freshman year. And that really helped me a lot. I got involved into the early, as a freshman in ROTC, and I thought, maybe that's what I'm going to do. I thought about Dad's career in the Navy, and he always talked positively about it. So I looked down that avenue, and I spent that whole year getting more involved into things through the military. And I thought, maybe that's the path.
What turned you off of the military? I'm curious.
Nothing turned me off. It was still the involvement. My freshman year, I took every military science all the way through. I got involved into to Ohio University's Ranger program, to Ohio University's Pershing Rifle program, the Association of U.S. Army. All these things. I was like, this is good. And it kind of, for me at that time, replaced the fact that I didn't have the team like you always did. There was always a sports team, and so you always had study hall, study groups. Yep. And so, there was always the physical training side. And so there's things like that getting into ROTC and these different programs helped me. And so because I did that, I wasn't committed to the military by any means at that point. That was still where they were kind of saying, hey, check these things out that we have to offer you. So it never turned me off from it. But what happened then when I got further along was when the funeral service side started to come to me. And I said, well, let me look into what it looks like to take classes and what that path would be. And so that's where it really wasn't so much that I got turned off from ROTC and turned off from military, but more the fact that I was realizing into my sophomore year at that point now, where if I'm going to come into the funeral home with mom and dad, the classes that I start to take lead me to a path that pulls me to a different college, and that cuts out that ROTC process. Now, I could have certainly stayed. I could have gone through the ROTC program, could have, continued the military and still gone on with funeral service. That's an option that could have been there. But when I started looking into funeral service, when I started thinking about, is this what fits for me? It began to make sense, and the doors started to open. And so it was more than that I focused on that. And I started thinking through things. When I would graduate college and get everything done and become licensed as a funeral home, as a funeral director, my dad was turning 65. So if I decided that that's what I wanted to do, then the timing was about right. And so for me to think, okay, I'll serve in, ROTC, then I'll go through the commission, then I'll go through getting my license, which means I need to go back to school that's where I started thinking, gosh, that puts me pretty far out, puts mom and dad on their own into a little bit later years where they kind of needed help. So it became more of the draw that I thought mom and dad kind of needed me to be back with them. Like I said, dad was 65, mom 63 when I started to come back full time with them. And so that's, a time where, again, a lot of parents are thinking, man, I'm 65, I get to retire. And mom and dad are like, okay, we kind of need some help. And so it became the draw that I would be able to come home, be with my parents, be with what then as I started thinking of what I was going to do, it started to fit the what do I want to do. And it became the job that fit the what.
So what particularly about the funeral home drawed you to it? And actually, as you do that, real quick, you can answer that question. So what exactly drew you to the funeral home industry? And you obviously were close to your parents when they were working here. So tell us a little bit about, just what you loved out of funeral home service. What were the particular things?
So when we start with it of what drew me here, I guess, the other part that I always share about where I came into funeral service it was after my freshman year, and we were talking one day. My dad and I went to lunch after church one Sunday, and at a place called Chi-Chi's. So when we think about generational things here, you guys know what Chi-Chi's is.
Chi-Chi's.
Yeah,
I heard of it.
I'm sure you've heard of it. You've been around, but...
wait, educate me. What's Chi-Chi's?
It was a Mexican restaurant around the area.
Okay.
Pretty big time. It was very well known, very popular. And you
Mom talked about Chi-Chi's.
Yeah,
she did.
It was good stuff, and they
missed out.
They were, like every restaurant that kind of has their glory days. I got to live through the glory days of Chi-Chi's. So, but what's cool about it is Chi-Chi's became then a part of my personal story too, because that was truly where I can see it as plain as day. My dad and I one Sunday after church having this conversation, and we just went there, and it was there was. Nobody was planning on that being a life-changing meal.
Chi-Chi's,
it was
right.
We were going to Chi-Chi's. Like, yeah, Dad, let's go.
That's such a funny thing to me. It's like Chi-Chi's built Barth.
There you go. In more ways than one. But my dad and I love to eat, and to share a good meal with him, and to have that connection to still say that day is what really changed it for me. It was between my freshman and sophomore year, and even though I've shared very openly. I always put off, are you going to go in funeral service? Are you going to go? I always said no. It's not
so
what
they
I was
did. They did ask you a lot.
No, mom and dad didn't.
Okay.
Just general people. Public.
Okay.
You're going to do this. But mom and dad never did. Mom and dad never pushed me to do this. They never pushed me to come into the funeral home. It was always in their view that God had a plan. They were very religious, very spiritual people, and they believed that God had a plan, and it was not their job to push whatever that plan may be onto me. It was my job to figure it out. So they were support, they were encouraging, but they were not we're going to push you to A, B, or C.
So I don't know if it's a cultural thing or if it's just like where you're raised or what. But my dad was from the beginning,
maybe it's
I was born, hey, you want to work with me in the garage? Hey, you want to come do this?
Yeah.
Hey, you should be a mechanic.
I think it's like a father-son kind of thing.
Maybe.
Because I'm always telling everyone, like, when I get a kid, like, he's playing football. Like,
yeah.
He's gonna be a freaking, he's gonna be an NBA star or something.
Yeah.
Like, he's gonna be great.
And wait till you have the cutest
Right.
little girl.
Right.
And you're like, oh my gosh, she changed my world. What do I do?
I mean, I get what you're saying, and that's kind of what I always thought too. But even now, I love how my parents raised me. I'm not perfect. My parents weren't perfect. They were pretty close to it. My parents were amazing, but they never pushed me. It was, it was just, we're here. What do you need? My dad was my superhero. They were my role models. They were my icons, but they never pushed to do something. And so I'm trying to do that now. I don't want my kids to feel like this is their destiny. Would I like it? Yeah. I'd be lying if I don't say, man, next generation would be pretty cool. That would make my parents pretty proud, but I don't know what that's going to be.
Yeah.
So I think there's something though about that father-son bond. You're right. You want that kid to love what you love, and you find yourself trying to share your passions with them. And that's a cool thing.
So kind of off topic, kind of not. Switching gears a little bit to more of the business side of things. There's a common stat that goes around in business saying that the more a business goes down generations, the more a business is handed down, the more likely it will fail. Yep. How did you always feel about that?
That's a real statistic.
Yep.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Wow.
And truly, I didn't know that as a kid. Again, when I went into college and trying to figure it all out, I just didn't know. Yeah. That day at Chi-Chi's when Dad said, well, the funeral home is an option. I mean, that's the extent of the pressure I ever got from my parents. Wow. The funeral home is an option.
And that's...
Battery. It's fine. Keep going.
Oh. So when he said, the funeral home's an option, that's what changed just my way of thinking. That's when I started saying, is that what I want to do? I don't know. That seems to fit, so maybe it would be. I didn't know that small businesses were more likely to fail in the next generation.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. Yeah, I didn't know that small businesses are the hardest to keep going even in the first generation. Most small businesses fail. Next generation fail even further. The third, it's even less likely. So the specific statistics, truly, I don't know, but I know that the numbers do definitely show the further along second, third generations are a lot more likely to fail. Now, had I known that when I chose to come in with mom and dad, I might have been scared. At that time, I was probably too naive to be scared.
Sorry, new studio. Getting the kinks out.
I was probably too naive to be scared. I didn't realize that I was supposed to be intimidated.
What were all your friends doing at the time? Not really. You don't have to go too far into deep, but I know right now for me, it's I'm looking at Jared and I look at a lot of our other friends, not as role models, but as I look at him as okay, I'm in a decent path like they are. I'm in the right direction, right, as a measuring thing. What were all your friends doing around the time? Were they in your ear at all too? Because I know.
Yeah, and did they have any thoughts on Barth,
what were you doing
go
right?
into the funeral home industry or?
No, that part they didn't. There wasn't a you're gonna do what type mentality. I mean, the closest friends that I had, they were still at that time through college. My two close friends went to two different colleges. We didn't. I went to OU. They didn't go to the same place. They went different spots. But again, come back home and we'd hang out. We'd whatever. They weren't oh my gosh, what are you doing now? When I decided to transfer from Ohio University to Cincinnati, where I would go to mortuary school, people weren't saying oh my gosh, are you kidding me? You're going to do what? So it really, that didn't really happen. It's strange, when I think about it. The college years, we had a good time. It was 2 years, my freshman, sophomore year, that I had the most fun of my college. And we hung out and I went to classes and I just kind of lived a basic college lifestyle. Worked my job at Kroger some, worked at home in the summer, but it was just, we just kind of hung out. We didn't talk of, so what's your big career goals and what are you going to do? What do you want to be when you're 30? What do you hope to accomplish by then? It was a good time. And so when I decided that the funeral home was where I was going, I had a couple people from Ohio oh man, we're going to miss you. Wish you weren't, leaving. Wish you're going to be here. I built friendships with them over a couple years and I had to transfer to go somewhere else because again, pretty specialized program. So if that's when I committed, I went all in, I'm okay, that's what I got to do. So that's kind of what it was. And then when I got to Cincinnati for that time to finish up my last junior and senior years of college, I was too busy working. At that point, I knew what I was going to do. And I worked at a funeral home down there. lived in a funeral home. I worked full-time plus. It was just, nonstop knowing this is what I'm going to do. And if I just keep my head down and push for these next 2 years, I'm going to be very happy at the end of it. So that's what I spent those junior and senior years, was working hard at school, working hard in the funeral home, and focusing on getting that time done.
So I'm really curious. We're pressed on time here, but I really want to know. So you graduate college, or you're in your junior, senior year. Mm-hmm. When you're in your junior and senior year, do you ever think of, I have to start learning business along with mortuary science, or was it just I'm going to focus directly on the funeral home stuff?
Unfortunately, I never did. There was at my college in Cincinnati, there was required business class,
right?
Class. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it never really entered my mind that, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to run this business. So unfortunately, I will say on that side, when I got out of college, I was unprepared. I knew the funeral home well. And I thought, I'm going to go back with mom and dad, and they've run the business. And what I then realized, I got back and I started doing the funeral home side, the typical parts where I'm caring for people and caring for families. Slowly then I got integrated that, okay, mom and dad want to also step back from this part of it. And in order for us to be successful, we have to manage a business. We have to take care of all these different parts. And so it wasn't until well after I was licensed, it wasn't until well after a couple years in that I'm with mom and dad that I'm thinking, I've got to take over this part of it. I've got to learn and understand more of this. So I began working closer with the accounting agency that we had at that point. I began working closer with them to understand what we needed to do better. Mom and dad were great people, fantastic at what they did and fantastic at who they were. They weren't the best business people. They were focused on taking care of our families and taking care of what they needed to do, raising us as kids and raising our family. So I started to realize I got to do a little bit better to get us to the next level. And so we began to, really look at that. And I began to study what I had to do. And I began to learn some of those things on my own. I had, again, a good company that my parents had chosen many years before that handled our accounting and handled that bookwork for us. And so I asked a lot of questions. And I just said, okay, how do I do this now? What do you need from me? And what can I get from you? So it began to be a little bit of learn on my own. And, in that sense, I'm still a little bit, things I got to improve on. I never had, the hardcore, I got my master's in business administration or anything. I have a lot of years experience of learning how to lead, how to manage our team, and how to handle the business assets and how to help us serve our families best. So it definitely became learning as I go, kind of studying the things as I go, reaching out to great resources that I would have to help me understand benefits and what I needed to study on those things and how I would do it. So, but from day one when I stepped out of college, I had a lot of work to do.
Yeah. So then fast forwarding, when you get out of college, when you start working at the funeral home, sooner or later you take over the funeral home. Take us into a little bit of how you get to where you're at now, where you're serving on Reynoldsburg City Council. Was government service, was public service ever a thought in your mind before that point?
Just like funeral service, it was not like the public service part is not anything that I ever thought I would be involved in. So as I got further along with understanding how to not only serve our families, but how to manage the funeral home and how to lead the funeral home and our team, as I started to understand the connectivity of the value there will allow us to serve our families better. It'll allow us to manage our costs. It'll allow us to take care of people. By doing all those things and understanding that, it allowed me to grow, and it allowed me to have our team grow and serve again, back to serving our families better. So with what we do, it's so personal, and we create connections and true relationships. It's not about, a logo on a billboard, a jingle on a commercial. It's about the person that I see at Kroger. It's about the person that I, coach somebody's child in youth sports. or the person who I coached or who coached me in youth sports that I've cared for. So it's all about relationships, and it's all about who we are in this community. So through the years, I always tried to find ways to invest more into Reynoldsburg. That was always our priority, is if the churches in town called and said, hey, we need money for a program we're going to put on. If the schools called and said, hey, we're doing a flyer, or we're doing a bulletin for this event, or the church says they're doing a bulletin, or the schools are doing a yearbook ad, we wanted to contribute to that. Yeah. So it was always, to me, a way that I felt we're contributing. We're donating to what's happening in this community. And the more we give back into Reynoldsburg, that's where we're going to invest our dollars. We're going to, we created a scholarship years ago because we want to see students from our community grow and thrive. Yeah. So it was always about doing that. So years later, as I kept doing more and more, people were asking me, you need to get involved into city government. Why don't you think about city council? Why don't you think... Again, it was never something that I had any interest in. I didn't have a background in government, politics, nothing. I had a background in funeral service. Yeah. As I started thinking more and more on it, though, and people continued to ask, I thought, well, I always want to make sure I'm involved. I want to be connected. And the way that got me first really involved into anything was when I ran a school levy campaign. There was at that time, our school superintendent and a person who I admired greatly, who had been on the school board, they called me in. They said, hey, we've got this school levy renewal fund that we want you to be the chair of. And I looked at them like they were crazy. I mean, at that point I was, young. I didn't feel adequate to do that type of job, but they saw something in me, and they asked me to work with another person and partner in that. And I said, long story short, I said, yes, I'll do it. I was honored, but I wasn't sure they had the right person at first. Yeah. It was a basic renewal of a campaign, and it passed, and, we connected. And so it was at that time I thought, well, gosh, maybe getting involved into these things is a good way to reach more and connect more into our community. And so after that, like I said, that's when people were asking, thinking about running, hey, why don't you get involved? And an opportunity on city council came up. Someone retired. And so I, put my name in the hat to say, hey, I'd like to serve on city council. And I got appointed to that position. And I spent that time understanding more about the budget of the city, more about the limited resources that were there at the time, and how to best try to manage that, and how to work together with others to try to build something good in our community. So it started very basic. It started very small. And it started in a way that, was me saying, I don't think that's for me. And just like funeral service, it became part of who I am, and it grew. And I love, being a funeral director, and I love serving our community, getting involved into city council. It's allowed me to understand to a deeper level what goes on, both the good and the bad, and how I can be a voice in that and use the skills that I've developed through the years and build those relationships that I've built to listen to people to say, what do we need to do here in Reynoldsburg? How do we fix things? How do we make them better? How do we take something that's not so good and make it a little bit more? And, that's kind of what's been cool about council, is just more of those relationships and more of those opportunities to help grow our community.
So for the past 10 minutes or so, this is exactly why I wanted to work at Cotner Funeral Home. And it's exactly why when we first met, I was like, yeah, this is a perfect place for me, because what you just said is exactly how I feel about where I should be working. I want to work somewhere that their mission is not just to sell a product, even though that's a fine thing to do, provide jobs and stuff like that. But I want to work somewhere who truly cares about the community, who truly cares about the relationships that they're building with their customers. So that was exciting for me, and it's still exciting me every day I come into work.
And I think that's a big part, though, for anybody, when you understand. One of the books I'm going to a lot right now is It Starts With Why. It's such a great book, and just understanding why do people do what they do, and so when you asked earlier about what I wanted to do, I didn't have the book at that time that put the words into it, but I kept thinking everything. It wasn't looking for a job title. I was like, what are these skills that I have, these passions that I have, what's going to fit into the job title? And so, when I think about that now, and I think about that book and talks about really who we are, it's genuine. It's who we are. It's what we want to do, and it's why we do. We truly want to connect. We truly want to make differences.
Yeah, so great. So we're running out of time. Okay. I want to play a little game before we stop. We told Barth about this a little bit before the podcast. We're going to pick 3 items. Okay. or games or people or places or things, you have to name what they are and what they do or what their use is in society.
All right.
So we're going to go first. They're going to pick 3 from back in your olden days, as Austin would
Olden
say.
days.
From back when you guys wrote on tablets.
So we keep saying, throwing this shade at me about this old guy. I'm ready to go anytime. Come play one-on-one.
but you're right. That and
He just challenged you. You got to do it now.
I'll take that challenge any day.
We're going to record it.
But like when you were talking about, while he's pulling this up, when you were talking about growing up in Reynoldsburg, you were talking about, going to the park back then when it was a basketball court.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now it's a skate park, but the same thing, you go there, you hang out all day there, get hot, go to the pool.
Yeah.
That's like
Great
every
times.
Reynoldsburg kid's summer right there in a nutshell.
times.
All the time.
Yeah. And, that's still to me why I love sports so much. I mean, I love to play, but I think of all the friendships and the connections that I make and that I continue to make just because of playing a game.
Yeah.
I have
Exactly.
built some of the greatest friendships because we met each other on the basketball court.
100%.
We met each other playing baseball or whatever it is. And it's a bond that is really cool. And you always have that excuse, let's go play golf, whatever it is. And there's so much more than just the actual game.
100%. You're
People
not
can
straying
take
away
that.
from this game, though.
Can take that lesson in life too.
We're going to have this on the screen for the
All right.
viewers. What is that, and what is its function in society?
I feel like you got to know that one too. You got a kid.
Okay. Yeah, you started me off with a pretty
It's a
softball.
I threw you a softball.
And I'm going to be honest. I got to throw out credit where it belongs to my boy. And so that is Fortnite.
There you go.
And as long as you don't ask me doing Fortnite dances, I think we're good.
That's what we should have done.
That's
We
the
should've-
first one.
But I do know that one thanks to my son. That's the only reason.
So this next one is a person. So you're going to tell us what his name might be. You're going to guess his name, and then you're going to guess what he does in society.
Oh, man.
Oh yeah, this is kind of hard because this gentleman definitely doesn't look the part, but
All right.
it's pretty solid.
So I want you to guess his name
Oh, man.
and guess what his role is in
His
society.
real name. Well, I won't give it away, but
His name.
Yeah.
All right. I don't have a clue what his name
Just
is.
give us a guess.
So this name.
okay. No, this is an easier way.
This is a nickname.
Tell us what you think his career job is first,
Yeah.
and
Do
then
that-
we'll
do
tell
that
you
one
his
first.
career, and then you can tell us his name.
I still don't think I'm gonna ever get a real name, so we'll have to come up with an
Guess-
alias. But I'm gonna say this guy is he is a music producer and loves to help create the latest and greatest new artist.
Can you guess what genre he's from? You're right on that.
Well, he's not a producer.
You say I'm right on that?
He's not a producer.
Come on
He's an
now.
artist. He's an
Well,
artist.
I bet he has some producer.
He produces,
credits.
right?
I
He
bet
probably
right.
produces a lot
So
of
he's
his
an artist
own.
and producer. Can
All
you
right.
Can you guess what genre he's in?
Um,
If he guesses this, I'm gonna flip this table.
I'm since you also said it wouldn't look the part. Is it some type of hip hop?
Ah,
Yeah.
he got it.
Am I even using the right terminology?
Yeah, no, you're right,
Hip-hop
you're right.
there? Okay.
I would say hip hop rap.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not Vanilla Ice, so I don't
It's
know.
the exact opposite of Vanilla Ice. That's Logic.
So this is
His name.
Logic, and this gentleman is actually African American. Well, one half, isn't he?
A third, I think.
A third?
Some
He's-
crazy ratio.
Yeah, but he's African American a little bit at
His
least.
name is Logic. I've never heard of Logic.
Bobby Tarantino, I think, is his real name.
Okay.
So there you go.
right.
That's that.
But he's a gamer
Third
too. So I mean,
Gotcha.
your son actually might have him on his
If you'd asked
playlist.
me who Ninja was or something, I could actually answer some
Really?
of those. And
That's
again,
crazy.
So
you
this
talked
is
to
a
me
piece
about-
of tech. You're gonna guess what this piece of tech is called.
See, but that's too easy.
Is it USB? Is that all right, Derek?
No,
No,
but
Okay.
Don't guess before you
All
look
right,
at it. So what is it called and what is its function?
It goes to an iPhone.
There you go.
So that part, this
You're-
part,
you're right-
plugs
you're-
into the
you're on the right
iPhone,
trail.
and
And this part does what?
plugs into a speaker,
it's a significance because a lot of kids hate it.
Yeah.
headphones. I mean, wired headphones.
You're right. You're
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
right. Yep.
So
You
do
got
you
it.
do you have what iPhone do you have, Barth?
This one.
This one?
Nice answer.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, just show us the bottom.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got the same. So you've seen these before with your phones.
Okay.
So
right?
these exactly what you said. Your iPhone doesn't have a headphone jack, so it plugs into the bottom.
Gotcha.
Then you listen to your headphones.
And now you
the
can't
dongle.
charge your phone
Yep.
while you're listening to music.
So now
Or do
See,
anything
I've
like
got the
that.
extra battery thing on the back there.
Oh, yeah.
Because I do use my phone a lot.
yeah,
so it's
that's
nice to
surprising.
have
I know.
it is an iPhone. It's all right.
Now it's your turn.
Do you FaceTime at all?
Not much, but every now and then,
Okay.
Recently when the kids were on vacation and I was
Yeah.
back, we FaceTime some. So, I'm pretty fortunate. My kids are right here, so I usually get to see them every day.
That's true. We had to take FaceTime away from my mom.
Why?
She overused it.
That's a story for another
Jeez.
time.
Yeah. Okay.
Too much FaceTime.
Barth, I'm excited for your objects.
Well,
Or object, or however many you got.
I mean, so the problem with mine though is
The name is on it.
You didn't give me a whole lot of notice on it.
I did not at all.
So I'm
Our future guests will get more of a notice.
We're very new school though, so
all right, hold on right here.
you might get us.
So while we were preparing this, listeners, we come in and we go, yeah, we're gonna pick 3 things from nowadays that we don't think you're gonna get. And then you're gonna pick 3 things from when you were younger that we're gonna try to guess. And Austin goes, yeah, like a washboard,
a washboard, or what did you say?
a horse and buggy.
A horse and buggy. That's around the same era, I think.
You just aged
Model
so
T.
much.
He's gonna show us a Model T car.
Not far off. All right, so again, I didn't get a whole lot of notice. I think it's
No, you're fine. You're
it's
fine.
a cool, fun game, but
Yeah, we'll definitely give our guests future
with limited
more notice.
This
is what you got.
I was able to come up.
Let's
with
see
a
if we can
few
get it,
things.
Austin. I'm really
I
excited.
was able to
Watch.
come up with a few things.
So that's Austin knows this.
Oh yeah, that's
So you both got
35 millimeter film.
All right.
We still use that today. Actually making a comeback.
I don't.
It's making a
I've
huge
never seen
comeback.
All right.
People
You've seen it?
I've never seen those in real life.
people would rather shoot on film
Yeah.
than with regular cameras. They have phones on apps on your phone now that make a photo look dingy and old and unclear.
It is like that old.
It's a new
throwback
trend.
thing.
Yeah. The disposable cameras are making a comeback too. It's incredible.
Yeah. Our photos didn't look dingy and old. They look pretty good,
Yeah.
Our technology through the
You give a
80s,
kid
90s wasn't all that bad.
Give a kid that camera nowadays, it's gonna look like it's gonna look terrible.
All right, so you got that one.
Yeah, we got that one.
All right.
So I would give him credit for all 3.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that's true.
For all
I
3 of
did.
his
Close
guesses.
enough?
Yeah, it was close enough. I didn't think you were gonna get logic at all. I thought he was gonna guess like
I think the glasses.
totally
I think it
different.
was the glasses and the haircut in that picture too,
maybe.
because those are those like artistic glasses.
You're right. Actually, I should have picked the one with him with the glasses off.
He had kind of a musical type look to it.
Just a
you
look.
know?
Really?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did. He had kind of a cool.
He's
like,
right.
He's
I
a
can
good.
be pretty hip.
I was gonna pick another guy.
He's a pretty
Post
notable
Malone.
artist.
But he has face tats, so I
A
thought
lot
you
of
would
face
definitely
tattoos.
guess
Yeah.
him.
He kind of more
seconds.
looks like a prisoner.
That's a gear shift.
Stick shift.
Yeah.
Stick
Okay.
shift.
So again, Austin seemed pretty confident.
Okay.
You were kind
I was like, and that makes me sad because I'm a mechanic's son, so
Right.
like I should know that for sure.
But you should have asked us, do we know how to drive stick?
That's perfect.
That's another question.
No.
I have no
Never-
idea.
So
Heck
you don't
no.
know which direction does what.
No.
Mm-mm.
no.
I mean, I know the gears, obviously from like dirt bikes, but that's it.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
No
You
idea.
put me in a stick, and
No idea.
I'm gonna crash it.
Yeah, for sure. Or blow the
You
transmission.
blow the
Yeah.
transmission. You're
Either
gonna
one.
be So okay. Well, that was
We're 2 for 2.
kind of got it. I figured
We're
you
we're
would,
we're on
though.
the fake stick wave with the
Oh,
cars
yeah,
with
yeah.
the sport mode where you just shift it up and down.
The manual shift.
All right then. How about that?
Oh,
Ah,
I was like, what are you trying to show us here?
that's
The
one of our
roll-
friends
the
had
roller
that in his
windows.
car.
You did? You still have a friend that drives one?
Yeah, well he did.
Okay.
As-
I don't know the
Sorry,
last
Casey.
time I've seen that.
Sorry, Casey, but
No, yeah. He just put Casey on blast. Yeah.
his old
Okay.
car had those, and it was great.
Yeah.
But I remember that was a struggle because
That was a struggle.
at one point in time I couldn't roll the window down.
All it takes is it gets off track, and you're rolling
Yeah.
that thing, it doesn't want to roll. And,
Ugh.
Mine was like my mom would tell me to come in. She's like, roll up your window first. And I'm like, super big. I want to play video games.
You get some incredible arm strength from those, though.
Yeah, so they were still hanging around
Yeah.
when you guys grew up, but all right, yeah. Well, give me a little more notice next
So
time.
it's
I'll
No,
it's
really.
tied. Yeah,
Here,
yeah.
off
no.
on
The
this.
thing is, though, is like you were on the right path
Yeah.
with what you were giving us.
Yeah.
I figured you were gonna give us like a Nokia brick phone or something.
Well,
So it's
see
been a
here.
great episode with you, Barth.
There you go. That was my other one.
There we go.
Oh, geez, we had it.
Oh,
Just in case there.
those big things. Which
It's been
one
a great
was that?
episode with you,
Oh.
Barth.
All right.
I love talking to you. There was a million more questions I could have asked, but we're
Honestly.
running out of time. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back on the next episode sometime next week. So join us for that. Thank you so much.
Cool. Good job.